feature. And any further updates we have will be posted onto this LinkedIn event or LinkedIn event page. That said, quick agenda. The purpose of this panel discussion, an introduction to the panelists, and the panel discussion itself. Before we actually start the panel discussion, I wanted to set the stage here, talking about why we are having this conversation. One, a lot of headlines that we are seeing in the news are essentially talking, about how AI and automation is essentially impacting the workforce within manufacturing, and how there's a big labor shortage that can essentially not keep up with this demand. Now, these are all seemingly negative, but there's a huge effort within the corporate, within academia, and other community partners to essentially meet this, promise, if you will, of the AI and automation as it pertains to a manufacturing workforce. So that is the perspective we wanted to share here between the three panelists that we have. They have come here, and thanks again for taking your time. And without much ado here, let me actually introduce you to the three panelists. And if you don't mind, maybe take about 15, 20 seconds to introduce yourself. So we have Rebekah Kowalski, Dr. Richard Ammon, and Lizabeth Stuck. So I'll yield to Rebekah, if you don't mind, a quick 20-second intro.
Thanks, Anhar. This is Rebekah Kowalski, and I'm with Manpower Group. I am our leader for manufacturing solutions, and really am focused on looking out into the future to see how the jobs landscape is evolving. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Richard.
Good morning. I'm Richard Ammon. I'm the Executive Director of Workforce Initiatives at the College of Lake County. My job is to ensure that the workforce needs are connected to our students and the skills that we provide.
Thank you. Lizabeth.
Hi, I'm Lizabeth Stuck. I'm the Vice President of MXD Learn. MXD is a Department of Defense funded research institute in digital technologies and cybersecurity technologies. And I lead our program to develop workforce solutions to address the skills needs.
Thank you all. And again, thank you for taking your time to be with us for the next, I would say, 45 minutes. That said, two of the moderators on this call, myself, Manohar Kamath, and Nikhil Dokale, who is with Unify Consulting, we have been involved in various digital transformation efforts, through our consulting companies over the last 20 years. And manufacturing is one of the industries that we are very passionate about to solve some of these problems using data and the digital platforms. So that said, I will go straight into our questions that we have for our panelists. The first question goes to Rebekah, although I will yield the floor to other panelists here if you have any perspectives to add. So I will put this almost like a negative sounding question to you, Rebekah. How bad is the workforce shortage, in terms of manufacturing as you see it? And one, should we worry, and why?
So this is probably the top question I get asked, right? So let's ground this in some data. So our talent shortage survey that we've been putting out for years and years shows record highs in terms of employers that are concerned about getting the talent they need. So the latest showed that 76% of U.S. organizations in the manufacturing space say they can't find the talent they need. And that same survey shows that, in particular, some of these very important positions for modern manufacturing, like skilled technicians, have been in the top 10 for many years. We could have made that talent by now. In August of 2023, if you were following the jobs numbers, you saw we had over 600,000 jobs in manufacturing that were unfilled. And we're looking at a shortfall in manufacturing of over 2 million by 2030. That's just a few years away. It's probably the number that most of us reference the most. And the clock keeps ticking, right? Practically speaking, you ask any manufacturer right now, are you having difficulty in finding and keeping talent? They'll say yes. So you ask the question, should we worry? Why should we worry? How much should we worry? Yes, as long as worry activates action. So it's a combination of things, right? A perfect storm of individuals retiring, young talent opting out of manufacturing pathways, And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. The reality is that the jobs are shifting and changing. That's a lot of what we'll talk about today. Skills and jobs are evolving rapidly, and the industry is moving through waves of tech uptake that are overlapping: automation, digital, cyber, sustainability. We partnered with MXD on research to quantify just how much evolution we were talking about, right? And in total, you're looking at 1,200 highly evolved or even net new roles in manufacturing. In just the space of digital alone, just to give you a view, if you were looking at the shop floor at production, over a quarter of the roles in the production domain alone see significant evolution, and it's coming fast. So digital tech, including AI, hold out with one hand this incredible promise around enormous productivity, but they still require a workforce that understands them and a workforce that can keep those assets secure. And that's really the challenge of our generation. Our research shows that 70% of employees know that they're going to need to upskill. Yet 57% of them report that they pursue training outside of work because the company is not providing relevant upskilling opportunities. At the same time, the paradox here is that over 70% of employers say they're putting down big investments. And that disconnect is pretty striking because clearly we're not connecting the dots inside of our organization in a way that resonates with the talent, giving them an appealing what's in it for me view of career pathways and progression, and the promise of all this technology to re-engineer these jobs in a way that make them even more attractive than they've been. Right? We've long passed dark, dirty, and dangerous, but we haven't really pointed the way to what is next. And so people don't understand. And we've also got to face this reality that a lack of qualified talent is standing in the way of modernizing US manufacturing.
So one thing that you alluded to in terms of companies not thinking that they're doing enough, but people are not taking advantage of those training programs. So perhaps the question is now to Lizabeth. You have, I think, a bridge between both the corporate in terms of the employees and the employers. How do you see that, and how do you kind of consolidate that kind of a difference between the employers and employees?
So we're certainly hearing a lot of what Rebekah has shared from our industry partners. So a network of over 300 national manufacturing, academic, and government partners. And I can tell you that in the 8.5 years I've been with the Institute, the conversation has evolved significantly from, yes, workforce is a problem, we should do something about it, but no, don't prioritize it, to it is part of every conversation we have now. Even as we're talking about R&D and technology work that we're doing at the Institute, we're talking about it in the same breath. We're talking about what are the skills and the workforce needs going to look like to be able to implement those technologies. It is not an afterthought the way it used to be. I think, though, we do continue to find this disconnect, to steal a term from Rebekah, actually, is this double squeeze, where we've got industry partners who are saying, even large industry partners who are saying, we're not getting the talent we need. We are trying to train them, but we can't do it fast enough, or we're not sure if we're doing it in the right areas with the right skill sets. Help us understand what those skills need to look like. Maybe we have employees who aren't taking advantage of these training opportunities for a host of reasons. So we continue to hear a lot of that. And there really is no one clear sort of front runner in terms of the challenges here. It really is across the board. We've got legacy workforce issues that still plague the manufacturing sector. We have these new skills that are necessary, that are evolving as quickly as Rebekah highlighted, that are making it very challenging for employers to know what kind of skills, and for academic partners to know what kind of training to develop. We have an issue where it's very hard for individuals to find time to go through training. The work they're doing is demanding, and so the space to take that training is not there. The compensation necessary to be able to do that, the wraparound services that support somebody getting education while working are not there. So there's a lot of pieces here that we're talking about and looking at that have all sort of come together to create this really large challenge of this 2 million plus workforce shortage in the next couple of years. Oh, I think you're muted.
Do you have anything to add, Richard?
No, well, to the point that, as a college and as colleges, we're very, very aware, and we're hearing the same thing, that there is a shortage, and you'll hear in a second how colleges are responding to that.
Great, thank you. So let's actually go to the next question. I think, Nikhil, it's your turn.
Right. And again, I was reading an article the other day, and it said that 10,000 baby boomers are retiring from the workforce every single day. And I think that's a big number, And again, but at the same time, do we need that size and kind of workforce, right? So what's changing in the future? And Elizabeth, just want to know from you, what does the future workforce look like? And are we really looking at those numbers, or there is some automation happening?
So you asked, do we need that kind and size of workforce? Do we need the kind? Probably not. We're probably looking at a different type of workforce. Do we need the size? I would argue that we do need the size. I think that even with automation and these technologies where there's sort of these fears out there that they're going to take jobs and we're not going to need humans doing jobs, that's not really what we're seeing from employers that we're talking with. And so I think that you're still going to find that you need the people, but the skill sets required are going to look different. And perhaps more importantly, what a career looks like, I believe will look very different than what we're used to. It's not going to be the kind of career pathway where you go through, you do training, there's education, and then you go to work and you work. I think we're going to see a push and a desire and really a requirement for continuous learning as these technologies continue to come online as quickly as they are. It's going to require continuous learning from everybody. And there's always been an element of continuous learning, but I think we're going to see this in a much more aggressive way. And we're going to see a need for training that supports continuous learning in a very flexible way. So in terms of what we need from the next generation manufacturing workforce, it's going to depend on the employer and the manufacturer and the sector, what is needed in terms of skill sets. But I think some cross-cutting things that we're going to need is we're going to need a system, both from industry and academia, and frankly, other partners who are involved in this, that is far more flexible than what we're experiencing right now, that allows for the development of trainings quickly, that can support new technologies coming online, that allows for flexibility in learning, particularly from employers, so that their employees can build these skill sets. I think we're going to have to think about how we provide and offer more cross-cutting learning opportunities, standards that are better understood across industry and academia. There's a lot of infrastructure that I think is going to have to be in place in order for us to have the workforce that we need. But from a size and a number standpoint, I think if anything, there's an opportunity to increase the manufacturing workforce with these types of jobs that frankly hold more appeal to what we're hearing from this current generation of workers, or sort of this emerging generation of workers.
Understood. And I think it's reassuring that you said that it's not that robots are going to take the jobs over, but just that the jobs are going to be of higher order tasks, right? And so it's reassuring to hear that.
And I think that there is, to that point, it continues to evolve. I mean, Rebekah highlighted some work we have done with Manpower, which is around jobs taxonomies. What kinds of skills are individuals going to need? How should employers be thinking about this? How should academics be thinking about this? We have worked closely with Manpower for the last several years to develop these taxonomies, to identify the skills and the roles and the business impact to employing individuals with these skills and the career pathways, to try and demystify some of what is a very complicated space. So again, I think tools like that, like the taxonomies and that work that's being done by other organizations and sort of in the same vein, are going to help to build this workforce.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And we are planning to put a link to that taxonomy that you mentioned, in our comment section on LinkedIn. Hey, Richard, I think before I get to you on the academia part of, how educational institutions are pitching in, I just wanted to take a minute and talk about the Advanced Technology Center, ATC in short, at the College of Lake County. Richard, I believe you were very instrumental in working with business partners, industry partners, organizations like MXT to set up this center. I understand that currently there are 2 courses offered here. Um, and my question actually is, how are educational institutions, gearing up to build that workforce of the future? And maybe the follow-up is how technology aware they should be, and just understand how educational institutions are preparing for that.
And thank you for the question. The skills required by the workforce continue to change, as stated, to include an increase in the need for students to be aware of the importance of digital and data skills required in the workplace, and that this awareness is increasingly crucial to industries as they go through the digital transformation, as they adapt to the new manufacturing technologies that they're experiencing as they advance in the industry. So what are colleges doing to prepare for this? Partner. On a national level, we're connected with the American Association of Community Colleges, which is very aware of the need for a talented and skilled workforce. Additionally, organizations like the National Coalition for Advanced Technology Center, and also state organizations like the Illinois Manufacturing Association and IMEC, as well as making sure that we have strong partnering and listening sessions with our local employers to ensure that whatever we do aligns to their workforce needs on a local level, because we are this community's college. Every career program at the college has an advisory committee, which is where we invite people from industry to come in and give us feedback on our curriculum to ensure that the needs of the manufacturing sector are being met, and that we're providing relevant skills to include digital and data awareness. And then we're integrating digital technologies into the curriculum to include data analytics, Industry 4.0, digital technology. And by providing and integrating those skills, we're able to provide just-in-time training to our manufacturing sector. Programs within our college and are similar in other colleges would be like our industrial technology program, automation, robotics, and mechatronics program, our welding program, electrical engineering technology, mechanical engineering technology. All those programs have a deep understanding of the needs of manufacturing, or integrating the skills that are necessary for the workforce. We're also incorporating data literacy into the curriculum. Employees need to be data literate, understand how to collect data and interpret data in their relevant roles within their organization to help the organization move forward. Also, skills in data visualization and interpretation are important for making informed decisions based on the data-driven insights that are provided by all this technology. I had mentioned Industry 4.0. They need to be familiar, our students need to be familiar with Industry 4.0, the topics of the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence as it evolves, big data analytics and automation are a help to employers as they transform their businesses into Industry 4.0 levels. We're also incorporating cybersecurity awareness into our curriculum, as stated before. We want to make sure that employers and companies protect sensitive manufacturing data and systems, so we're incorporating those skills as well. But more importantly, we really provide hands-on training in virtual labs, real-world digital settings, looking at data projects to include ensuring that those students are incorporating and understand how they fit into the overall operations of a manufacturing facility, the skills that they're learning. Just 2 more. We're also making sure that we're connecting to employers through internships and apprenticeship programs, where students can learn in school and then go out and apply these skills in the manufacturing environment to ensure that there's a connection between what we're teaching and what students and what you're seeing in the manufacturing industry. And don't forget about soft skills as well. The technical skills are very important, but to be able to to have adaptability, critical thinking, and effective communication skills are as essential as the technical skills in a digitally advanced manufacturing environment.
Thanks, Richard, for that overview. And it's reassuring that you mentioned data literacy and data observability. Like I come from a data strategy and management background, and I think sometimes the technology is there, but you kind of in certain industries you do need that cognitive lift of the organization to take advantage of those technologies. Maybe Rebecca, I just kind of turn to you. Any quick comment about you are on the front line of supplying that workforce to the industry? Any comment about how you are benefiting from these programs?
Anytime that we are able to be connected in with the partners in the employment ecosystem that are providing the education and certification, we are very, very happy people. The reality is, of course, we need more of exactly what Richard is describing, and we need a consistent approach to that on a US basis, which means everyone has to understand the magnitude of the challenge in front of us. On the one hand, we have to take up the technology that will make us as competitive as possible in manufacturing, right? So we have to make those investments. And too often we're leaving the question of workforce readiness separated, divorced from the entire discussion around the tech uptake. But it is really a chicken egg kind of question, right? If you don't have the workforce, you can't take up the technology. If you don't have the technology, the workforce doesn't want to show up to do the work the old-fashioned way, right? They're interested in working in a world that's like Iron Man's cave, right? With Jarvis, right? They want all of those bells and whistles because they have them in their social life. They have them in their school life. And they are great enablers to doing a great job. And then they step into our manufacturing environments and they don't see that great technology. And on a US basis, we don't look at the gap and the gap closure in a consistent way and really effectively scorecard ourselves and saying, are we moving? Are we shifting? And it's not just about the workers that are coming in new and going through these fabulous programs when they can find them. It's about all the incumbent workers that need to shed their old identity and put on a new one with all of these new technologies. Those are the folks that I get concerned about leaving behind. It's why Manpower has made a huge investment in our MyPath Advanced Manufacturing Pathways program. But again, you need much more of that. You need a consistent framework, a consistent approach, and a consistent view on a US basis of where is the puck moving to and how are we taking the team with us? Because we're not getting new entrants to that team, right? The demographics are the biggest dictator in terms of what's happening to the hollowing out of this workforce. So we have to shop from our own closet and remake that talent and remake those career pathways and provide opportunity, or we will all be left behind.
So that's one of the next question that we had for Richard and also Elizabeth. It's kind of like tilting this on the slightly on a different angle. There's definitely like a lot of demand. Also from I'm guessing from manufacturing companies, maybe like Elizabeth, you probably know this better, but also from a Richard, your perspective, how are you able to, for example, from school perspective, able to meet this demand from manufacturing companies that might come to you and say, look, we need to produce, 100 people or 100 students that, need to come into our workforce. Are you seeing those challenges and how are you addressing those challenges?
Yeah, I would say, kind of going back to a statement that was made previously, part of our job here at the college is to make people aware of the careers in manufacturing and really emphasizing that it's a career that you're going into. And so part of what we're doing at the college here, and a lot of colleges are doing the same thing across the country, is investing in advanced technology centers, which become showcases of what modern manufacturing looks like. Mentioned before, the College of Lake County has made a $35 million investment into building out a former box store into an advanced technology center. We have about 143,000 square feet of space that simulates what manufacturing is in our community. Part of that as well, our strategy was to make sure that there was a lot of glass in the advanced technology center. So as we start to focus on our K-12 partners and getting high school students in here, getting middle school students into our facility, they're able to see manufacturing as a viable career and kind of break that glass ceiling for a lot of people that might not have seen manufacturing as a career in our community. Lake County, Illinois is the second largest manufacturing county in the state of Illinois. So it was really important to us to make sure that we support that industry in our county, but every county in the country has some form of manufacturing. And as you look around the country and even in the state of Illinois, there's vast amounts of investment going into developing these kind of advanced technology centers. Additionally, we're trying to ensure that our entire populations have accessibility to these careers. The colleges and a lot of colleges are going after grants to ensure that we serve our underserved population by providing them the ability to get skills to include unemployed, underemployed, recently incarcerated racial minorities that might not have typically seen a pathway to manufacturing careers, but being able to provide support for those populations and the wraparound support while they're taking training in order to provide them with the opportunity to be part of the need for manufacturing workforce. We're also partnering with our dual credit and our K-12 system to ensure that there's a direct connection between the skills taught in the high schools that can be transferred to the college and or university and then into the workforce to make sure that we have the ability to have that transfer, but also trying to make that pipeline a little wider and ensuring that the students have the ability to transfer those skills. So we're working with guidance counselors, and we actually have college employees embedded in every high school, and they're able to provide up-to-date information about manufacturing career paths as they're working with students within the high schools. So those students might not have normally had exposure to the opportunity in manufacturing, but because we have that link with our high schools, we're able to reinforce manufacturing as their careers. Last thing I mentioned is lifelong learning initiatives, really working with our customized training department to ensure that we are able to upskill employees when manufacturers need it, and also community-based programs where employees can come to the college and upskill as well on our equipment. We've made investments of several $1 million into technical equipment to be able to provide state-of-the-art training on state-of-the-art equipment.
And maybe this question goes to Elizabeth, you next. How do you see that, or what are you hearing from your, the companies that you work with in terms of are they able to meet their own demand, from schools, or how are you supplementing that? Perhaps I'm guessing that's a perhaps MXD initiative as well, where you supplement academia with your own training programs.
So we are hearing a lot about this from industry, and they are not able to, as has been discussed on the call, they're not able to meet the demand. They are short on workers. They are not able to find workers that they need, and so there are significant challenges from the industry standpoint still to address this issue. They are working closely. Richard mentioned earlier partnership, and we, from an MXD standpoint, we think that is a key part of solving this. We have had the opportunity as well to work with the College of Lake County. The work that they are doing to address the community's needs for workers is really quite impressive, as is their new facility. We, from an institute standpoint with a national lens, we are looking at how can we build more partnerships and kind of serve in this neutral convener role that we sit in to help highlight successes where they exist so that they don't exist in a silo, and address some of these pain points. And so some of that is going to come through content that already exists and maybe just needs to be more publicly available. Some of it may be that there are gaps in curriculum and training, and that is where the Institute steps in and builds some of that curriculum and training with industry recognized credentials, national standards that we can leverage that are already existing. So we're not trying to create something else new when there's already so much new in this space to address the workforce needs. Collaborating with industry partners on creation of training and curriculum, and then leveraging again as much as possible, we feel fairly strongly in sort of the community approach to solving this, which is to do a lot of what Richard is describing, bringing the high schools and the community colleges and the employers in the region together to start talking about how to address these issues. And MXD frequently finds ourselves in sort of that convening role to help support that, bring tools that we know exist, and to provide resources. I think there was one other thing that I wanted to touch on that I think we're seeing more of, which is that we have to start thinking differently about what a worker in the manufacturing workforce looks like. And so it not just in terms of, are we providing the wraparound services necessary so that working moms can also get training done, they can find time for that with childcare coverage or transportation costs covered. But we're doing quite a bit of work at the Institute right now on looking at how these new technologies provide opportunities for those who are disabled, who traditionally have not been able to consider manufacturing as a career. And what we're finding is that some of these new technologies that are being implemented by manufacturing employers allow those with either a physical or cognitive disability to work in a manufacturing environment. And so we are running several programs right now. We have worked with Manpower on this. We have worked with the College of Lake County on this. We've worked with several other partners to pilot some of these fellowships and see if there are some ways that we can sort of open the aperture of what the definition of a worker in the manufacturing workforce looks like. And I think that is something that we're going to need everybody to start thinking about, not just from a from all areas of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility.
And that's great to hear as well, because I think there was a recent announcement which we'll probably post in the comment section around, I think it was College of Lake County and MXD producing some opportunities for people with disabilities to essentially take up some of these trainings, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. You are correct. Yes.
So kind of segueing into the next question, very similar, but, I think there's a lot of topics that we've talked about in the past kind of, lead up to this one, right? How do you essentially motivate? Because I know that everyone knows that this is coming or this is already here, but how do you motivate, people within, within any company? And actually, it does not actually just involve manufacturing. It could be any company, but, given you're privy to the manufacturing companies, how do you motivate companies and also employees to kind of adopt these technologies, either Industry 4.0 or simple automation? Yeah. Maybe Elizabeth, to you first.
So there's a couple of different pushes we see for motivation for companies, and sometimes that the push from a company standpoint comes from the employees themselves, who are aware of these technologies and these opportunities and are frankly sometimes coming to MXD saying, can you help me sell this up the chain with my employer, because they're not seeing the opportunity. Help me open their eyes to what this could do for us. I think part of the challenge around digital technologies in particular is that it is hard to see what digital technologies look like in many cases. When we talk about, robotics, or if you talk about additive or 3D printing, you can go in and you can see what this looks like. When we talk about digital and the benefits of implementing digital, it can be hard to see that. And so part of what the Institute does is we have our own 30,000 square foot factory floor that we use just for demonstration and testbed purposes. And so the idea there is to sort of show the art of the possible, bring this to life, help individuals and employers understand what it looks like to implement digital technologies and sort of everything that falls under that Industry 4.0 umbrella, and what the impact is, and make it real for them. I think that has been part of the challenge, certainly on the digital side, is sort of understanding what the impact and the benefit looks like, and how this would work in your own place of employment. So we do hear a lot about that from manufacturers in terms of adoption, is where should I start? What should I prioritize? What do I need? Well, that's a different answer for everyone based on what their work they do and the outcomes they're looking for. And so that's part of the conversation that we have. I think with the employees, it's really challenging because you have some employees who are very eager to see this kind of adoption. In fact, and for some, it may even be a requirement for employment. They're not looking to go any place that isn't going to adopt these kinds of technologies. And in other instances, you'll have employees who have been working there for decades and they're not really interested in making changes because everything's working just fine. And so it really creates a challenge for manufacturing employers who have this very diverse workforce to incentivize employees to adopt some of these technologies. I think for those who are finding a resistant workforce, and we do hear about this from our manufacturing partners, some of it again has been showing what is the impact, what is the opportunity, what does this provide for that worker when you implement these technologies? Not what does it take away from them, but what does it provide for them in terms of new opportunities that they may not have been able to delve into otherwise. I suspect that we will see less and less of that pushback as we continue to see this significant wave of retirement of boomers who are generally the population that has been more resistant to some of these technology adoption. And instead, we're going to see even more of a push from employees to see their employers implementing some of these technology solutions.
And Rebekah, same question, but perhaps from an employer perspective. I think it's probably an easier push, because if they think that there's a profit motive or some kind of a productivity motive, there's probably easier. But what are you saying?
I think actually what we're seeing is that the case is pretty clear, right? If I can optimize decision making, if I can optimize productivity levels, think about the promise of AI just to optimize workflows, right? It's incredible. So we actually went out and we asked thousands of employers. And the interesting thing is looking at the inhibitors, because the motivators, you're right, the business case is incredibly clear, Anahar. But what they are telling us is they say that it's a skills issue. They cannot get to full adoption. 60% of surveyed companies said, I can't bridge these skills gaps in a timely way. And 53% said their inability to attract talent, just to get them in the door, those were the main barriers to transforming their business, right? At the same time, you've got, for those of you who haven't read it, I highly recommend it, WEF's Future of Jobs report, saying that the top two things driving business transformation were increased adoption of new and frontier technologies, and then application of ESG standards. And they pointed to the same thing. It's a skills issue. So actually, employers have to really get inside of their employees' heads. What is it that individuals are saying about why they come to work, why they would stay there, and whether or not they feel good about the technology uptake? Are we even listening to what they have to say? So business case clear, but the other thing that's clear is that they're hindered by access to talent to actually help them pull through those benefits. And here's just a rough sample of what individuals were telling Manpower Group, because we went out and we asked them as well, because it's very useful to look at both of those. So 61% said, I can't get the job I want because I don't have qualifications. I mentioned the 70% that said learning new skills is critical to productivity. But 50% said they feel technology will make their work prospects worse and not better. Blue-collar workers aged 45 to 54 felt the least recognized for their potential and their skills. 62% said they have nobody to guide them to learn and upskill. And 7 out of 10 said, I want a leader I can follow and I want purpose out of work. So what that tells me is we're failing to connect with purpose. We're failing to demonstrate how individuals are going to benefit from the technology uptake. We fail to showcase how the modernizing of manufacturing makes it an exciting place to be. And we fail to connect even what we're producing in manufacturing with people's sense of purpose. Now, of course, as it relates to the skills gap, the fun thing here is that the technology that it is providing a paradox, right? We can't find the skills quickly enough. But as Liz mentioned, the tech is actually what makes the upskilling more possible and more inclusive than ever before. If I can use light guided technologies, if I can use simultaneous translation, and like think about all of the individuals that could come into the workforce and work in a brand new way. And once they're on the ladder, we know we can help them keep moving up the ladder as long as we've designed a ladder for the future, which basically says I need to take as sustainable of approach to talent and not having leakage there as I do to any other natural resource that I'm using to produce something. When we do that, we'll have connected the profit motivation with the purpose motivation, and we'll be able to do something really magical.
Thank you. And I think that probably leads into your next question.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of overlap between what we talked about. And I'll give you a personal example here. Like I think 10 years back, there was a lot of talk about green energy and green jobs. And, I was really motivated because, alternate energy, good for the planet. But when I looked at some of the compensation for those jobs, I was like, that meant a significant pay cut for me to kind of, look at those jobs. And now we are talking about Industry 4.0, and we have generated a lot of enthusiasm, momentum around it. But if an employee, right, when they think what's in it for me, right, what is the perception of that? As Richard mentioned, it's not a manufacturing job, it's a manufacturing career. Can you talk, Rebecca, about kind of what is the perception of that, and how can we improve that perception? What about the compensation of those jobs? Do they
Sure.
match to something like data scientists, for example?
Right. So the first thing is to attack the perception issue, right? So your question, does Industry 4.0 improve perception? In short, yes, right? Industry 4.0 is the opposite of dark, dirty, and dangerous. But we are not as great at explaining what those career progressions and pathways really look like. So we're hearing from talent all the time is, I want a job that has a future. And I know that things are being radically transformed, but how they're being transformed is not something I have visibility to, nor do I have a say in that, right? So yet I want to be in a space where I am connected with purpose. I like the idea of making things. By the way, that's one of the gifts of COVID, is that people started to get really interested, and younger generations started to get really interested in how things were made. But they didn't want to make them the same way that their parents and grandparents had. They were interested in the high tech, right? So we're not even demonstrating what that looks like in a way that people can really understand and translate into, hey, there's a job for me in this and a career in this for me. Salaries are definitely moving, particularly if you are sitting in those skilled technician and up occupations, right? And that's where you're going to see the multiplication of roles, right? Where you'll see bigger changes is on the lower skilled occupations, but that's also where we need to be pulling people from and pulling them up into those more lucrative jobs. So it is a race against time. The compensation will be there, but we have to move the talent into those roles, right? And to do that, I think you're really going to have to become very good storytellers in this industry so people really understand what they're doing, how it connects with purpose, what career progression looks like, how technology makes this a very exciting place to be. I always tell younger people, when you get to a certain age, you call everybody younger people, I guess, that this is where the high tech is being applied. And so if you're interested in being in high tech and making things and connecting with purpose, this is the place to be. But we need many more storytellers, and we need to make it very explicit how everyone wins.
Thanks, Rebecca. And I actually have so many questions, but keeping an eye on the time, probably we need to move on to the next one.
For sure.
Which I think is a very open question, or this is for all panelists. What is your top recommendation or recommendations from being ready? Both from an employee perspective or employee experience perspective, as well as a company perspective. So maybe Rebecca, if you want to go first, if you have any recommendations in terms
Sure.
of.
I just have a very quick one, right? And it's related to the earlier point. I think there's a real opportunity to help individuals understand in their language how their jobs will evolve and change, and to market both upskilling and career opportunities in a personal way. Think about any consumer goods company that you engage with and how much they know about you, right? And it's a very tailored approach. Are we taking that same approach and talking with talent that we understand their interests, their needs, and giving them information about how we will help them progress to the next level in a way that's meaningful to them? And it's critical. Most of the talent you need to operate your business isn't going to come externally. It has to come from internally, and inside of your communities. You have to start communicating with them, engaging with them, and motivating them.
Thank you, Rebecca. And Richard, maybe if you want to go next.
Yeah, I would say number one, collaborate with your local community college. There are multiple ways to collaborate with your college to help address your shortage of workers. A lot of cool schools have manufacturing alliances, which is a group of manufacturers concerned about workforce initiatives. And so we're going to be developing one of those in Lake County. Also, there's usually a career and job services area of the college that helps connect employers with jobs, or students with jobs, that companies where they're looking for talent. You can also hire interns and apprentices. Set up an apprenticeship program at your company to help connect with students. We know that students that start apprentices a lot of times stay with those companies because they see the commitment the company has made to them and to their career, as we talked about before. You can volunteer on an advisory committee through a college and give feedback directly to college on skills. We encourage you to use the customized training and the services of the college where we can come out to you to provide those upskilling that you're looking for. And then the last piece I would say is provide scholarships to students as well through your colleges. Nothing connects a company to a potential employer and student like a scholarship.
Ken and Elizabeth.
So from an MXD perspective, the top recommendation for a company would be to know that there are a tremendous amount of resources out there and programs and support systems, and that you don't need to do this in a silo by yourself. You don't need to do this from a blank sheet of paper. And so leveraging resources within your own community, be it community colleges or other academic partners, or national resources like the institutes, like MXD, like the work being done by Manpower. There's just an overwhelming, frankly, amount of resources out there to help support companies as they jump into both their Industry 4.0 digital journey, as well as building the workforce and the skills they need to support that.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, and thank you all. And now, one of the things I wanted to say, not just thank you to personally to each of you, but also the companies that you represent. I think Rebecca, yourself representing Manpower Group, excellent resource for any company to go to find the next generation workforce. Elizabeth, from your perspective, you are essentially helping the companies and also potentially employees, directly to upskill or train themselves. And Richard, from your perspective, the CLC, is doing a great job, whether it is in form of ATC or other programs. So thank you all for taking your time. I will be ending the stream right now, but we can also stick around for just a couple of minutes after this. So I just ended